Friends, has there ever been a time in your life when you chose to walk away from something that was meaningful to you, something that was important in your life, and for some reason or another, it just became time for you to walk away? Perhaps there was some form of conflict or some form of misalignment arose between yourself and this other thing. Perhaps it just simply felt like it was time to move on to other things and that chapter of your life was closing and it was time to walk away. Yeah, same for me too. Sometimes there's really good reasons to walk away from something and never look back. But have you ever had the experience of getting to a point where you looked back at that thing, looked back at that community, that obligation, that commitment, that relationship, and thought, I wish I could go back? And in those moments, perhaps some form of regret, some form of shame or guilt or embarrassment, or just the feeling that I couldn't possibly go back to that thing because I chose to walk away. Perhaps those feelings got in the way. Well, I just want to tell you that you can always choose to opt back in. Friends, welcome back to Heartscapes, where we are practicing the system of Reiki to be grounded, to be spacious, to be connected, to remember ourselves. My name is Michaela, and I have been in a real place of reflection lately. It is seasonally appropriate this time of year in January to be in a restful, dreaming, reflective place, as many other people are. And I found myself looking back through some old journals from a time when I was deeply involved in an organization that I taught with. It was where I received my teacher training for holding spaces of ritual, spaces of community ceremony, classes that have a spiritual focus. It was a place that I had invested much of my time and my energy and my identity and had just really been enmeshed with for quite some time. And there came a time when that season of life closed and it was time to move away from that place. And there was a lot of feelings associated with that. It wasn't exactly a clean movement, but it was the right thing to do. But in my musings this time of year, I've been looking at what's going to be coming up here at Heartscapes for the coming year. I did a video just sharing my dreams and my visions for what will be up here in this space for the coming year. And there were some pieces that I wanted to remind myself, refresh my memory from that time period that I was pretty sure was in those old journals. So I was taking a look back through them. And as I was looking through them with all of these meticulous journaling notes and reflections and just all of this content that I had captured for myself in these journals over these years of doing this work, I was starting to feel those nostalgic feelings. I was feeling regretful for losing that part of my life, for walking away from it. And there's a lot of feelings that can be associated with a thing like that. Regret, of course, a little bit of embarrassment over certain things, a little bit of anger at things that happened that caused me to feel like I wanted to move away. There was some blaming going on in my mind, some judgment, just all of the things. But really at the foundation of it was this deep gratitude for the time that I had because it was such a formative and important aspect of my life for so long. And I started to think, not only did I kind of turn away from the organization, but I turned away from a lot of the types of material that I was teaching at that time, things that were really quite meaningful and that are feeling like they're coming back into my consciousness of things that I want to bring forward again. And I noticed inside of me this tension, this feeling of like, wow, I'd really like to reclaim some of this, but maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I'm not allowed, right? Maybe I've left it behind and I shouldn't pick it up again. And as I was having these conflicting feelings, I turned a page in the journal, and just right there in the middle of the page was this phrase that I had written years and years ago: you can always choose to opt back in. And it was one of those moments, perhaps you've had them, where you just feel like the universe is speaking to you. You just feel like your heart has opened up, has cast out this vulnerable moment, of longing, of questioning, of being in a little bit of a, uncertain, confused place. And the intuition turns on, and the tendrils of energy between yourself and the world, really begin to vibrate together. And there's something that comes to you from the outside world, some message that comes to you in whatever form it comes, right? It could be anything, right? It could be a particular animal that shows up. It can be a billboard. It can be something you overhear somebody saying, or it can be a phrase written by your own hand in your journal years ago that's giving you exactly the message that you need in that moment. And that was exactly what happened for me in that moment. You can always choose to opt back in. And it was like my past self was giving me permission and was also kind of tossing me a lifeline and saying, hey, you know what? Why don't you bring me into your present day, right? You walked away at the time that you did for good reason, and it was okay that you made that choice. And times change, and you can always choose to opt back in. And I had quite a moment with it. I don't know if you've had one of these moments where it just like hits you and you just like get all emotional about it. I had to cry a little bit. I'm not going to lie. But when I came on the other side of that kind of rush of emotion, I really kind of took a contemplation about this idea. And, around this particular situation, but also just around life in general. Because we have these experiences, right? This is a common human experience where we have walked away from something and at a certain point we feel like we might want to reconnect. The question at that point, first can be, should we, can we, are we allowed to? And then once we get past that, in what manner can I do this well? And in what form will this new connection take? Because part of what's challenging about this situation is that it's not going to look the same as it did before. We are different. The situation is different. Time has passed. If there's other people involved in this thing, which typically there is, they have changed. Perhaps there's repair that needs to be made. Perhaps there's things that need to be put right. And perhaps the form of the thing that you walked away from has changed completely, which is the case in this particular sense. The organization that I was working with at the time is a very different organization now than it was, with very different people involved. So the question then becomes, what does it mean just for today in this moment to have compassion for myself back then and for myself now, for everyone else involved? To be grateful for what I had before, to release attachment to anger and fear about anything that might have happened in the past, fear about what might happen if I reconnect, and to be diligent in these inquiries. And if you recognize those statements as the Reiki precepts, then maybe you've been with me for a while, because this is the foundational teachings of the system of Reiki, that in any given moment, we can choose to meet the moment through the lens of these precepts. Unattached to fear, unattached to anger, rooted in gratitude, rooted in compassion, and diligent in all of these things as we're true to ourselves and to others. And so, this can become a really helpful guide for us in situations like this, when we're thinking through what might it look like to reconnect with something that we walked away from. What might we need to do to work through any fear or anger that we might have associated with that? What repairs might need to be made? And can I be in this present moment with the thing and be unattached to the past iteration of what I experienced before? Because this in and of itself can be a great deterrent to wanting to step back towards something or to bring something up to us that had been from our past. Is that we have this idea in our mind of that past thing, and the things that we want to retain, the really beautiful, powerful, amazing things about that, they might not be the same, right? When we reintroduce ourselves to it in this present moment. And so the precepts can be a really powerful way to meet that decision, to meet that reconnection, to say, just for today, just for this moment, for what is true right now, I'm going to say yes to trying out this reconnection. And I'm going to be unattached to what it was before, compassionate to what it was before, to myself and to everybody else, and to this present moment. And I'm going to be curious and open, and I'm going to say yes. So that's where I am at with this. And I'm really excited and looking forward to, really going back into that material and looking at it with a fresh and curious mind and seeing what of it has heart and meaning and juice for me now. What am I meant to bring forward? And are there any people from that time in my life that I'm meant to reconnect with? I suspect the answer is yes. What might that reconnection look like? And can I use the precepts as my guide for how I enter into that connection? So wish me luck on that. I hope it goes well. And I hope that if there's anything that's stirring for you, anything that you're feeling a tug to reconnect with, to re-engage with, and you're feeling any hesitancy towards that, you're feeling any sense of trepidation or fear about reconnecting, that you first of all take a look at the precepts as a really powerful, simple, elegant, beautiful guide on how you can do that reconnection well. And secondly, that you please remember that you can always choose to opt back in. And as you go into that journey, into that decision, into that experience, may you be deeply provisioned for it. Let me know how it goes. Let me know what's on your heart and mind about reconnection. Drop a comment down below. Do me a favor, if this video gave you anything to think about, anything of value, I'd appreciate that you like the video. And if you'd like to see more from me, subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you back here with me on the next moment of musing that comes through. Thank you so much for being with me. Until next time, I love you. Goodbye.